Okay, part 5, the progressive press. Dillon XL650 is what I got here. I'm going to go through all the steps on getting this set up and everything, and then we'll produce some ammo with it. This will give me a chance to go over some things that I didn't really go over before either. So when we were doing our primer trays and doing our primers, this is the one I use for the Dillon, because you got to feed primers into a tube like this and then feed this into the machine. So this has just got that texture on there that uprates all the primers, and we're doing 9mm, so I'm going to use the Winchester small pistol primers. And right now these are all orientated in the right position, so you could just put them on here like that, and then put them on the other piece and flip them over and then feed them into the tube. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spill all these on here just so they're all not orientated the right way, and I'll just show you how this works. Basically all of them are uprighting. I got one or two left. There you go. All the primers are the same way, so then I'll take the other cover that it comes with, put that right on there, and then just flip it over, take it off, and now all my primers are ready to be picked up by the tube here. And all you do with this tube is you just push it down on the primer, and it'll feed all 100 primers up into this tube. So let me stop the camera, I'll do that real quick, and I'll show you what to do with the primers. Alright, so on the Dillon, this is where your primers go, in this tube that this just came out of. And I got a 45 case on the end of it because it helps weigh it down and make sure that none of the primers get stuck inside the tube there. This is just a feed tube, and it's got an audible sound alarm on it, and it lets you know when you're getting low on primers to add more primers to it. So on your tube here you got a cotter pin on the end, so what you do is you just flip it around from the way you were using it before. You stick that right in there, and what I do is the rod that was in the tube, I stick it in the end of this primer tube, and that will force all the stuff, all the primers down into the tube. So I'll pull this pin out and you hear all the primers drop. And you can see my tube is now coming out the bottom. It helped push all those primers out of there. So all you would do is flip this back over, put this rod back in there, and that's going to sit right on top of the primers, and then as soon as it gets down low enough, it's going to let you know when you're low on primers. Okay. So we got that all set up. Let me move the camera over and we'll go to the next step. Alright, as I discussed before, you can get really crazy with prices and stuff and add-ons for all the stuff to do with reloading. On this press they make a hopper that goes up on here that's motorized, and it keeps feeding the brass down the tube into the press. It's like $300 something or whatever, right around there. I don't pump out massive quantities of ammo, so I don't really want to invest in that at this point. This holds about 20 or so 9mm, and it's like 12.223. So when I pay attention down here, when the last one drops, I'll stop, fill up my tube. It only takes a second to do it, and then I'll continue. So you add all your brass in here, it's all upright, and then it's going to feed down through here. It's going to drop into this first station, and then I have my 9mm expanding die on here. Okay, all this brass has already been processed. It's all factory specifications as far as size. They're not primed or anything. So the next step usually is to expand your cases. I use that on this. There's an expander in your powder measure as well. That's what you don't need this step. It'll expand it here. But I start an expansion a little bit with this one, and then this one finishes it. And to me, that makes the press feel like it operates more smoothly rather than doing it all in the one step. So Your piece of brass is going to go into the second station, go up, it's going to expand it, it's going to go back down, the next pole, it's going to go to this next station, and come to the side. This is where your primers feed in. You can see the hole in the bottom there. It's hard to see. There's a rotating plate under here, and as it rotates, it'll feed a new primer in. So at this stage, you push the handle forward. It's going to run the ram up for the primer and seat it in the brass. And then when you pull the handle down, it's going to go up. Oops. It's going to, like I said, expand it to the proper amount. And then it's going to drop a charge of powder. This is all adjusted for 4.1 grains of tight group. And then it's going to go down. It's going to rotate to the next station. And then this one is just a safety station. It's going to go up. And then this is a powder level check. It will sound off if this rod does not go perfectly where that little needle is in the valleys of that plunger. If it's a little bit too low or a little bit too high, that pin is going to hit it, and it's going to let you know that there's something wrong with the powder level, the amount. So then it goes back down, it rotates. Here I'll stick the bullet on it, run it up. This will seat the bullet. It's going to go down, go to the next station, go up. This is going to crimp. And then it'll go down, and then it'll eject out this port and land into this bin. So once you get all 5 stations full, every pole of the handle is going to spit out a finished case. So let me get that all set up and I'll get it running, and then we'll do like 10 or so just so you can see how it works. Alright, I zoomed this way in real quick on the priming position just so you can get a better idea of how it works. There's a little wheel under here that it'll click, one click over every time you pull the handle. See how it just turns? So every time it'll feed a primer, and then when you push the handle forward, that action right there will seat the primer right in the case. So let me get this set up like I said, and I just wanted to show you that real quick. Alright, so we got it all set up, and I got all 5 stations that got a piece of brass in them. So all you really need to do is, once you got everything all set up, is just keep pulling the handle and keep feeding it bullets. Everything else is all automatic, and you'll see in a second why, as a beginner, it's not really recommended that you get a progressive press like this, because there's a lot of things going on all at once. And you need to have an understanding of what's happening. That way if something abnormal happens, you're aware of that. So even after using the Dillon for a while, there's a certain feel you get when you're pushing and pulling on the handle here. And as a beginner, you really wouldn't notice anything abnormal that was happening. So with that, I push forward so it seats my primer into the priming station. I set a bullet on here. Pull it up, bring it back down, kick the finish round out, the next one feeds in, pushing forward again so it puts the primer in, set my bullet, Now as you can see, I'm paying attention to the brass, and that's the last piece that's in there right now from the feed tube. So I'll stop at this point, I'll fill up the feed tube, and then I'll show you from a couple different angles. You'll notice on a press like this, I mean, you can get the bullet in there crooked like that, and it seats it no problem. We're on the single stage press. They're a little more less forgiving. So as you can see, my feed tube is just about empty again, and just in that short amount of time, it's pretty close to 40 rounds. So you can see, definitely a lot easier once you know what you're doing. And there you have it, the Dillon XL650. There's a lot of things that you can get for this press. I got the light and stuff that goes in here. It's an LED that goes straight up top, and then there's an LED strip along the other side of this. That just allows me to see into the cases and see what's going on a little bit better. They make a strong mount, which will raise this press up about that high if you'd rather like stand up while you're doing this process. I like to sit down when I'm doing it, so I didn't feel the need for that strong mount. They make a tray here where you can sit all your bullets on it. And with the case feeder, there's actually a bullet feeder that you can set up on here that you will not have to put each bullet onto the case. It'll do that automatically. So basically just sit here and pull the handle. This is the roller handle. This is an add-on. It comes with the regular, this style. I don't know if you can see that or not. Just the traditional handle comes with it, and you can get this. Makes it a little easier on your hands if you're going to sit here and pump out 600 to 800, rounds an hour. What else? The bullet feeder there. You can get this tool kit that has all your Allen wrenches and everything. I got the Dillon dies on this one, 9mm. They're pretty expensive compared to your Lee dies or whatever else you're using. They're a little bit longer because this tool head is a lot thicker than most presses, so that gives you more adjustment. The Lee dies work just as good. I have a complete setup ready to go for 223, and these are all my Lee dies and stuff that I'm using on that. So you do not have to buy Dillon dies, despite what you read or anybody tells you. All the dies are the same thread, so sometimes what people have had to do, instead of putting the jam nut up top here, they put it underneath. That allows the die to give them more adjustment going down to where they need to be for whatever die they're using. So exchange kits, pretty expensive on something like this. Comes with a shell plate, obviously, because all different brasses, different sizes. There's a couple different adapters and stuff that go on back here that feeds the brass and stuff. What else comes in it? That's pretty much it for the exchange kit. And then what you do is your powder measure has a big bar and a small bar. Small bar is typically for like pistols and stuff, and then the big bar would feed more powder for like rifle. Rather than keep readjusting this powder measurer whenever I switch calibers, you saw on my other one there, I just got a completely new powder measurer. It comes with a complete setup, bars, you can actually see in this one it's got the big bar in it. I don't know if you can see that or not. And then this one's got the small bar in it. But rather than having to, like the turret press, having to keep adjusting dies, and that's the reason why I got the turret press, so I didn't have to do that. I didn't want to have to do the same thing on the Dillon, so you get additional tool heads, set all your dies up in it, get your powder measure all set up in it. The only thing I reuse is the audible for your powder level. That's just one Allen screw. You pull that out and stick it on that one. And then the primer setup obviously stays with the press, so you don't need to change anything to do with that. And then you just buy these tool head stands, and you can stick your tool heads on there, one for each caliber. I mean, it's roughly right around like $300 for a complete setup for changing calibers. Like I said, it's pretty expensive. So 9 and 223 is what I do on the Dillon. That's what I shoot at the range. I go through a lot of it. The 357 SIG and 40 Smith & Wesson, I don't shoot a whole lot, and I just use my single stage at this time to reload that. Eventually I'll probably start doing 40 on this. So that's it, Dillon XL650. You can see it's a lot easier and quicker than a single stage, but you really need to be with a little bit more experience if you're going to be thinking about buying one of these. So I hope you enjoyed my videos. This is the last video of the series, and any feedback is more than welcome. If there's anything that I missed that needs clarifying, I'll be happy to answer your questions. I'm going to do some other videos after this, reviews on some of the stuff that I haven't done reviews on before, like the Gen 6 powder measurer, and then I'll go back in the previous videos when I'm using that, and I'll post a link to the reviews. So if you liked what you saw, subscribe, and then happy reloading.